Hello and welcome back to the show floor of Offshore Europe 2023. We're delighted to be welcomed and joined by Kevin Franklin, CEO of 3T. Kevin, how are you doing? How have you found the show so far?
Doing really well. It's busy, it's great to see. It's lively, lots of energy, isn't there?
Lots of energy, yes.
Lots of great people to talk to. So, no, it's exciting.
Fantastic.
It's very great.
Yeah.
It's a super facility.
Any particular stands you've seen so far, aside from 3Ts, of course?
Well, the Energy Voice is pretty good.
Like that.
3T is excellent. So, I mean, you need to go there.
On
honestly.
message.
Yeah.
So, 3T, rebrand event last night. Tell us a bit about what that rebrand means for the business, Kevin.
I guess it's part of the journey, really, Alistair, because if you think about 3T, or 3T Energy as well, came into being almost 6 years ago. And we're in a position where we're the number one provider of training into the energy market in the UK by some distance. And foundation is the oil and gas offshore piece and so forth, but we're number one in renewables. We've got a very strong growth trajectory. We've just opened a new facility in Teesside.
Yep.
And that's around the industries that are currently there, but also the progression of industries around, particularly around the transition that we could see that's happening there around the redevelopment of that region.
Yep.
And so forth. So we're really keen to support that. We've got in the last 6-9 months new facilities in Manchester, in Glasgow, and in London, albeit London and Glasgow ones are smaller at this stage. But we're on a really interesting journey. So we've built ourselves to a really strong position in terms of where the business sits. And we've also, I guess, in the last 12 months or so, expanded internationally. So we've now got a JV in Qatar, we've got a JV in Guyana that we've developed and so forth. We're developing training internationally, and that builds on the presence we already had, for example, in Houston and in Dubai in particular. So it's a really exciting place to be. So I mean, the rebrand's a natural evolution. The businesses that had come together over time, and whilst part of the story is M&A and acquisition and so forth, we've got a very strong organic story to tell as well. And so that rebrand, now telling the story more coherently and so forth, is a natural evolution. So what was launched last night, we're highly delighted with it. We've had lots of super feedback, and our team's done a great job in that regard. So all guns blazing.
All guns blazing on around different kind of energy hubs around the world. It sounds very, very busy. Let me ask you about this philosophy around highest impact learning, Kevin. Tell me a bit about that. How does one go around delivering something like that?
Well, I guess, and again, as we've been through this sort of thinking about the business and the developing the business and where we've been successful, I mean, ultimately we're a learning business, Alistair. And as a learning business, what do we want to be good at? What are we good at? And it's delivering a compelling learning outcome for people. So highest impact learning, safety critical industries, it's delivering that learning experience in an appropriately engaging way. So it resonates, fixes in your head, you build it into your muscle memory, you can build the skills into your day-to-day working and so forth. But on top of that, if you find yourself, God forbid, as we all do on occasions, in a sort of crisis situation and so forth, you've got a lot of muscle memory.
Right.
You understand what to do in those situations so that you've got the maximum opportunity to negotiate the challenges successfully. So, highest impact learning, we think it succinctly sums up what we do. Highest impact learning for safety critical industries and so forth. And it's around, it's a blended solution a lot of the time. So it can be a technology solution, it can be a practical solution, it can be a combination.
Yeah.
It's whatever is appropriate, really.
Yeah, let's
in
talk
that
a little.
context.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit about that technology piece and building that muscle memory as you describe. Finding the balance between new ways of training and, I guess, more traditional ways of doing it. Talk to me a bit about how you find that balance and find the right solution for the right, I suppose, type of training or the right application.
And the answer is depends in many respects. So what we find particularly with the younger generation and things like that, and particularly as technology is developing and so forth, technology is becoming increasingly important. And you think about the journey that technology is on in terms of the immersive learning, the VR, the AI, data analytics, machine learning, etc., etc. I think it's still got a way to go, but we do feel that the practical element of training is almost certainly going to have a place in most cases as well. So it's augmenting the training or complementing the practical training or the digital training with the alternate solution. Because if you think about the practical elements, sometimes you just got to do it in a tactile way. You've got to be able to touch it, you feel it, experience it. And there are some pictures around here of people going into onto a fireground or going into a survival pool. Look, we can do all that in VR, but you don't really feel the heat in VR, or you don't feel the water going up your flipping nose or whatever when you do it in VR and so forth. So we see, certainly for the foreseeable, a lot of it will be a mixture, which is going to be important because that will give the best outcome for people and so forth. But we do see there's a journey and there's a trajectory where technology can still add a lot more in terms of that capability and so forth, and we're keen to unlock that for people.
Yeah, we've done plenty of technology stories, but I remember my own survival training and feeling that, and then it's not really something.
Have you refreshed it?
I'll have to come back. We'll get that signed off after this. Yeah, you talked a bit about, I guess, the various hubs around the world you work in. Obviously, there's, various cultural barriers, I suppose, for lack of a better word. There, just talk to me a bit about there and operating different regions, and I guess the opportunities, maybe the challenges as well that can bear.
I don't know whether I'd characterise them as cultural barriers. Really, I get why you asked the question. I understand that. And so forth. I think some of the challenges in terms of having an appropriately skilled workforce are probably contexted that way rather than necessarily cultural.
Sure.
And so forth. And there's a quite often localization agenda in the territories that we work in. So Guyana, for example, they're very keen appropriately to have the indigenous and local population appropriately skilled to deliver their economic success ultimately. And absolutely, that is the right thing to do. Not to have a load of Aberdonians coming over there and sitting
There's so many of them around the world, I know.
Absolutely, and so forth, delivering that. So that is an element of it. And of course that's important for us because it's a big part of our growth story. And we are ambitious to grow further internationally. It's part of the vision that we've got.
Yes.
And you'll see in the website, we're now calling ourselves 3tglobal.com. That's important. That's a message statement in that context. But what there is also there's different regulatory environments in many respects in some different parts of the world. So the US will be different from Europe, be different from the UK, be different from some of the expectations in the Far East and so forth. But quite often the standards can be driven by, if you think about oil and gas, the major operators that are within those regions and so forth. Because it goes to reputation ultimately. They want to be working efficiently, but they also want to have that. They don't want any accidents, basically. They don't want to lose time. It costs them money and so forth. All of those things. So it's all, the nuances of the culture obviously are important, but it's just you need to tailor what you're doing and not be arrogant and feel that, we can just lift up what we've got in the UK and just plonk it into country X, Y, Z, because you can't do that. It's building on it successfully, really, and tailoring it in that context.
And just to bring it to the UK again, so much we're hearing right now is we need companies like yourselves, I suppose, that can help facilitate a transition for workers going from oil and gas through to renewables. Can you maybe talk to how you see that problem? I suppose barrier might be a more appropriate word there at the moment, and how we might go about address that in the UK.
I think it's a worldwide question, really. It's an international question. I think it's a great question in that context and so forth. So if I think about how we are skilling a workforce and reskilling a workforce, because there's a shortage of good people across the world in that context and so forth. In the UK, we're supporting several hundred apprenticeships each year. Off mic before we started, we were talking about RGU that we work with, for example. you know, Alistair. But we've got collaborations and long-established collaborations across the world with universities and colleges and so forth. We work quite closely with the military in terms of resettling, leavers, military leavers and so forth, and helping them develop careers. Really good skill set of people come out of the military. Really good, and people who want to transition into a new sector and so forth, we provide low-cost finance for them, etc., so they can take their appropriate courses that they want to take and so forth. But I guess in terms of specifically in the UK, we were delighted to get involved in the North Sea transition deal. So we've developed something called the Skills Passport in conjunction with APITO and funded by the Scottish Government. And that is all around creating a platform where there's visibility over the skill sets that individuals have got so that they can use those skills to transfer across sectors. And we feel that's probably got capability to beyond the North Sea as well. So I mean, that's a really exciting project to get involved in. So look, and on top of that, as I'm sure will have picked up, we are investing monies into the transition ourselves. So we're following, we bought a business called UCT last year, which is electrification, utilities training, gas, etc., etc. And there's a big demand for these sort of people across the world. So we feel, getting behind that, supporting that, following what's happening in carbon capture, hydrogen, things like that. It's a really exciting space. It's really exciting.
And I suppose, you've talked about different energies, different geographies, different technologies. I mean, if you're going to crystallize, I guess, the future of 3T, the future of training, it's a big question. How would you, I guess, define that and pin that down if you can?
No, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I'll try and answer it in a succinct way. I mean, but we've hit on a sort of strap line of 3T, training, technology, transformation, and so forth in terms of that, how we want to be known, how people want to know us. But the future of training for us is to be continually on that journey of delivering the highest impact learning that you talked about, giving the best learning outcome for people. We work best, and we really, really enjoy working with people in a collaborative way, helping them to understand where some of their learning deficiencies are, helping them to understand how by upskilling and so forth they can get to a better place, be more capable, more competent in their day-to-day working environment and operate more safely as well. So that journey in terms of giving them learning that resonates and it's just going to hit home, getting that experience. And I think we've all learned over time that there are different ways of learning, people learn in different ways, and being able to provide that variability appropriately for people so that we're delivering the right tailored outcome is what excites us, to be honest.
It's a great place to leave it on. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. That is us for now, but keep an eye out on Energy Voice Out Loud for more through Offshore Europe through the week.